Good morning, our students. Welcome to our English lesson. In this lesson, you can learn about intonation patterns and sentence types in English. The theme of our English lesson, intonation patterns and sentence types. Plan of the lesson. First, intonation and language teaching. Second, intonation as a complex unity of its components. Third, structure of intonation. Fourth, sequence of tones. Fifth, intonation patterns and sentence types. Intonation and language teaching. Next, we shall consider the effect of intonation patterns in association with each of the five main sentence types. Statements, special questions, very often called questions because they contain interrogative words such as why, when, what, where. In general questions, also called yes-no questions, because they should be answered by yes-no. Imperative commands and requests and exclamation. Statements are most widely used with the low, medium, fall preceded by the fallen head or the high, medium, level head. In all these cases, there are final, complete, and defined. For example, it's difficult. No head. It was not so easy. I wanted to go there immediately. We shouldn't that in emphatic speech those prenuclear pitch sections are usually associated with the high fall. In these cases, statements sound categorical, concerned, and weighty. If the statement is intended to be shooting or encouraging, the last stressed syllable is pronounced either with the low rise or the high medium level heads. Example, it's all right. Statements also used with the low rising tone when they're intended as questions. Example, you like it. If the statement is a correction of what someone else has said or a contradiction to something previously uttered or a warning, it is used with the full rise usually preceded by the falling head of the high medium level head. Intonation as a complex unity of its components. Special questions are most commonly used with the low falling tone on the last stressed syllable preceded by the falling head. In these cases, they sound serious, searching, business-like. Example, why did you decide to go there? What's the matter? If one wants to show much interest in the other person or in the subject and sound friendly and sympathetic of the pronounced special question with a low rising tone by the falling head. Example, where do you live now? What's your name? For repeated or in choosing special question in unemphatic usage, the low rising tone on the question word is also common. Example, verbal context, response. I went with Jack. Who did you go with? It took me 2 hours. How long? General questions are most common with a low rising tone preceded by the falling head or the high medium level head. With those patterns, they sound interesting. For example, does he ever come to London? May I try? When general questions are said with a low fall preceded by the above-mentioned types of head, they are put forward as a serious suggestion of the subject of the urgent discussion. Example: shall we postpone it? Haven't you noticed the mistake? In short questions used are response like did you? Has he? The low fall is used, for example, verbal context. I went to the theater last night. He hasn't been invited. Respond, did you? Hasn't he? Next, structure of intonation. Comment with the low fall preceded or not preceded by the falling head or the high medium level head are very powerful, intense, serious, and strong. The speaker appears to take it for granted that his words will be hated, that he will be abused. For example, try to others key. Come and have dinner with Tom. Comments with the high fall associated with the same types of heads seem to suggest a course or action rather than to give an order. The speaker doesn't seem to be worrying whether they will be abused or not. For example, put more milk in it. Short commands pronounced with the low fall alone sound unemotional, calm, controlled, often called. For example, take it, stop it. Request. Request with the low rise preceded by the falling or the high medium level heads. Sound shooting, encouraging, perhaps calmly, patronizing. Example, don't move. Come and stay with us again soon. Request with the fall rise, with the falling head or the high medium level head or without head sound pleading. For example, try not to. Don't forget to remind me. Sequence of tones. In sentence containing more than one intonation group, almost any combination or terminal tone is possible. The terminal tone of the final intonation group is generally determined by the communicative sentence type and the attitudes conveyed by the speaker. Statements commonly sound with low fall express their finality. In case a phrase conveys not finality, the low rise can be recommended. For example, in my opinion, he deserved all he got. Next, in writing, punctuation marks are sometimes for reader how to split a sentence into intonation group, but they are not always dependable. So, there is often some choice in how we divide up phrases into intonation groups. The speaker should be very particular about intonation group division. Here, is an example when intonation group division is especially important for the meaning. Example: my brother, who lives in Leningrad, has just bought a new car. The sentence may be split up two different ways as the number of intonation group is important for the meaning of the sentence. If we mean that the one of my brothers who lives in Leningrad has got a new car, the sentence is divided in two intonation groups. My brother who lives in Leningrad has bought a new car. If the sentence has three intonation groups, my brother, next who lives in Leningrad, next has bought a new car, the meaning is different. Next one, simple sentence. Adverbial phrases at the beginning of the simple sentence normally form of the separate intonation group pronounced with the low rise or the mid-level. Example: you can have potatoes, carrots, cabbages. In case the speaker wishes the enumeration to be regarded as a separate to interest, the low fall is used. Such sentences are pronounced in a slow, deliberate way with the longer pauses. For example, she has a lot of dresses, shoes, and hats. Questions. Disjunctive questions, being simple sentences, consist of the list of the two sense groups represented by the statement affirmative or negative, and the tag questions negative or affirmative, corresponding tone to intonation groups. The choice of tones in distinctive questions depends on the speaker's certainty of the fact expressed in the first sense group. First, the most common pattern for the disjunctive question is low fall in the first intonation group followed by the low rise in the tag question. For example, it is quite simple, isn't it? The low fall the second intonation group shows that the speaker demands agreement from the listener. For example, he's a clever man, isn't he? Next one. From this example, we note that it converts conversational English. These tags have lost their questioning function and are often used formally. In these cases, they are pronounced with a very short pause and require no answer. Loudly they, isn't it? In some cases, the first intonation group can be pronounced with the low rise or the fall rise, and the low fall second intonation group in confirmation or support. The low fall in the tag, it is the sort of pattern which is often used in talking to a child. Next one, imperatives. Question tags mostly will you, won't you, are frequently combined with the imperative forming the following tone sequences. Next, another possibles and the intonation patterns and sequence types, and there are some tests for intonation and simple sentence. And the control question. It is a very simple question. By changing the intonation, you can change the meaning. And there are bibliography for electronic books. And okay, we hope we learned something useful about English intonation. We have a question for intonation in your language similar in English. The lesson is over. See you next time. Thank you so much for joining me.